Welcome back to the NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for Tuesday, March 11th. We have a 4-game slate we're going to cover. I'm your host, Tyler Wiemann, at FlatTyler83 on your DFS sites and Twitter. Now come join us at LionStar. We do have a free 7-day trial. You heard that right, free. If you've never tried us out before, go to the app stores, Android or iOS app store, and get access to that free 7 days. Now let's jump in, let's check it out, and let's see what we can dig up on this slate. All right, as always, starting position by position, starting with a point guard spot. We got James Harden, 39% owned, 9,600. He is going to be super high owned, and that's fine. I am absolutely fine with some of him. He's in a great spot versus the Pelicans. We really don't need to dig too much into it. Kawhi Leonard is going to be back in this one. So that is, hurts him a little bit, hurts him from a ceiling standpoint. It's less likely he will get into the 60s, but 50s still very, very possible. And as it stands right now, I do think it's going to be a lower scoring slate. Not a ton of real good spots, but James Harden is in a decent one. Next, we got Cade Cunningham, 10.5K, 33% owned. He's projected slightly lower than Harden, but he does probably have a better chance of going for 60 plus just because of how much usage he demands and the fact that Harden has Kawhi Leonard there. But all in all, I'm fine with going some Cade against the Washington Wizards. The one thing is they've gotten much better versus point guard lately, and it's not the slam dunk matchup it was earlier in the season. However, team pace is down also. I don't mind the spot. I don't mind having some Cade pay up a little bit to get a little different than Harden, but ownership is similar. I do prefer Harden in this spot. Next, we got Dennis Schroeder, 4,800, 32% owned. I think Schroeder's a little bit interesting here. He is in a good spot coming off the bench versus the Wizards. The other thing, 24 minutes last game, 25 the game before that, and 28 the game before that. His minutes have finally crept up with the Pistons. I think that's here to stay. I think he's probably going to be playing these minutes for, the remainder of the season. And it's a decent spot. Now, 4,800 with his limited minutes doesn't give a huge amount of upside, but I think there is some safety in the spot. And right now we don't really have much value. So I think Schroeder is popping up a little bit more than he probably should be. I would expect his ownership to drop a little as more value comes up. Pivot time. If Tyrese Halliburton is back, he's 8,800, and I find it very hard to get away from him at lower ownership. Now, this is the thing. He's been on a roll with 40s and 50s, even throwing up a 60 burger, and he is cheaper and almost just as likely as the other two, being Harden and Cade, to hit 50. So I don't mind going to Tyrese Halliburton. He's been playing very, very well, and you're getting a discount here. And on a slate where there's not a ton of value right now, I think that's very, very interesting. Next, we got Damian Lillard, 8,900, 43 points. Projected 16% owned versus the Pelicans, 236 total. So high total here. Both teams are pretty evenly paced. It's going to be a fast-paced game. I don't mind getting to some Damian Lillard here. He torched them earlier in the season, then didn't get much rolling versus him last time out, but he absolutely has that 40-50 burger in him. However, with Giannis there, 50 plus is not super likely. Mid-40s, high 40s, very much can happen. Next, we got CJ McCollum, 7,200. I actually like the spot for CJ a decent amount. Now, he hasn't been playing the best ball right now. He was out last game. Should come back re-energized here after almost a full week off because they only had one game in like 4 days here. So I'm a little interested going with CJ versus the Clippers, who are 18th versus point guard. Once again, you're paying down a little bit. he very easily could get into that mid 40s, and he is a lot cheaper and a lot less owned. I think there is some very nice leverage you can take with CJ McCollum and still get access to pretty solid ceiling. Next, point guard on DraftKings. We got high owned being Harden, Schroeder, Cade. We talked about them all, so we're going to get over to shooting guard on FanDuel. Tim Hardaway, 4,100, 41%. This is a classic case of the fact that there's not much value up. He at least is playing big minutes, and so I see why you would want to or potentially use him. However, this dude is at 0.63 fantasy points per minute. He needs a lot of time on the court to really accrue some fantasy points, or the shot needs to be falling. The shot could fall. Who knows if his shot's on or not, but big time minutes I just don't foresee with, the addition of Schroeder and Beasley coming off the bench. Those guys are much more electric scoring than Hardaway is, and I just don't really love Hardaway. Schroeder we covered. Beasley, 5,300, 29% owned. He has taken a little bit of a back seat as far as ownership wise with Schroeder there. The one thing I would say is I don't probably want Schroeder and Beasley in the same lineup. Both of them are going to share the court a ton, and they both need to score the ball to really make it happen with fantasy scoring. And without that, they're going to dud. And I think it'll be hard for both of them to excel coming off the bench in scoring. Could it happen? Yes, but I will try to avoid it as much as possible. That both of them, I think one of these two, Beasley or Schroeder, will probably go off, and Beasley does have a little bit higher ceiling, so very interested. Halliburton we covered. McCollum we covered. Asar Thompson, 6,600. Now this is an interesting one, and I got to galaxy brain it a little bit here. Last two games with Tobias Harris back, his minutes have dropped. But with Tobias out, we did see that they will play him 30 minutes. They're obviously being a little careful with him, but the potential for those bigger minutes are there, and he's in a very good spot versus this Wizards team. This is a spot where I think you can take some shots on a low-owned guy with a big ceiling, and just playing him will get you fairly different. So I like Thompson as a leverage play. It is boom bust because he could get you 14 minutes or 14 points in 18 minutes, or he can give you 44 in 28, 30 minutes. Really don't know how it's going to be night in, night out, but the ceiling is there, and he is extremely good from a fantasy point per minute, 1.19 over his last 20 starts, and he's in a good spot versus the Wizards here. So I very much will take some chances on Thompson. Getting over to shooting guard on DK. We got Schroeder, we got Zaire Williams, and we have Malik Beasley. We've covered two. Zaire Williams at 4,400. Super interesting. Likely starts at the power forward spot and has been pretty effective from that spot. Also, the Cavs. That is one of the spots you want to attack when you are facing the Cavs. So I don't mind going with some Zaire at 4,400. He's probably priced a little too cheap for the minutes that he's playing. Schroeder at 4,400 on DK is super cheap. I don't mind some Schroeder over there. And small forward on FanDuel. Hardaway, Leonard, Beasley, Kawhi Leonard, 8,100. All right. He's too cheap for the ceiling. He's too cheap for the player that he's been over the last, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever years. He hasn't been quite playing like himself. He's at 1.08 fantasy points per minute over his last 20 starts. Last year, he's more like 1.2. This is a very good matchup, though. I don't mind some Leonard. Everybody's going to be here. It's going to be super chalky, but there is very high likelihood of 40. I will probably still come under the field a little bit on him and just get a little different that way. I think 40% owned with how he has been playing this year is a little high. Beasley we covered. Nick Batum, 3,800. It is just a matter of the fact that he is extremely cheap and playing decent minutes. 28, 34, 24 the last three. Now, if he is not a starter, I would play 0 of him. If he's a starter, I am a little bit interested. Like I have said, there's not much value. So we're going to have to bite some bullets here we don't necessarily like. At least he's at 0.8 fantasy point per minute over his last 20 starts. Trey Murphy, 8,200, 13% owned. This is another spot where we have huge upside for a guy that's not priced that hard. And it is the best matchup for the Pelicans. Going small forward versus the Clippers is how you want to attack this team. And Murphy, if he gets hot, has that high 50s point ceiling. So absolutely interested in Murphy. He's also going to play a big time minutes, which just elevates that floor as well. I think he is a great play, and I'm shocked he isn't going higher owned. Everybody else here we have talked about, so we'll get on over to small forward on DK. Leonard, Williams, Beasley. Let's move it on to power forward on FanDuel. Leonard, Mobley, Cam Johnson. Evan Mobley, 8,500, 24% owned. I liked him just so I could remind myself that, one, Ty Jerome is out, and two, Donovan Mitchell is questionable, along with DeAndre Hunter. If Mitchell is out, Mobley gets a big bump, as well as Darius Garland. Jared Allen does too. It's kind of like the Celtics, where if one guy is out, you want to play some of the other ones. But Mobley would then have a much bigger ceiling, and I would be much more willing to play with him. I would also be more willing to play Garland, as this 16.5 spread likely comes down, and there's just more of a chance that the Nets are able to stay in this game. Mobley's fine. I just very much worry about how many minutes he's going to play as it is slated right now. I will like him more if Mitchell's out. Cam Johnson, 6,500. He can get us 40, and that's enough for him to be in consideration. However, it's not the greatest spot. They likely get blown out, and the Nets have really been spreading the minutes with guys. So while I would expect him to play the most minutes, if he gets to 31, 32, I think there's still a question if he can actually pay off his salary. So I don't love Cam Johnson in this situation. Pivot-wise, Murphy we covered, and Carlo Mikovic. He's likely going to come off the bench. There's no Kelly Olynyk. He's been playing mid-20s in minutes and can get us 30. He's 4,600. It's pretty easy to see why you may want to play him. I'm going to have some. Like I said, there's been very little value on this slate, and he is one of the safer value picks there is. So I'm fine to get some Mikovic for sure at 11% ownership. Now, get it over to DK. Mikovic, Leonard, 3,700 for Carlos, just way too cheap. Leonard, we talked about. Johnson, we talked about. Let's get on over to center. Ivica Zubac, 7,900. The one piece of news that I really want to watch for the Clippers here is, does Drew Eubanks play? Without Eubanks, Zubac played 44 minutes. 39 minutes with a hurt Eubanks. The minute threshold for him is just way higher if Eubanks sits. They just don't have, a bunch of other centers to play. So watch that news. If Eubanks is sitting, Zubac is going to look way better, and I'm going to probably have an absolute ton of him. As it is, if Eubanks plays, I think he may be going a little bit over-owned just because of where his price is, but he is still a decent value on this slate. Now, we have Zubac, Leonard, and Harden all high owned. One of the things I got to say here is I would probably only play 2 of the 3. I would not go all 3 of them unless you want Trey Murphy or McCollum or something on the other side, and you're going for a full game stack shootout of this game. Is that possible? Yes. Is it likely? No, but it can happen, and you're trying to win a tournament, so you might have to make some wild calls like that. Mobley, we covered. Jarrett Allen, I would probably play a lot of Jarrett Allen if Mitchell is out. And then let's get some pivots here. Jalen Duren, 7,700, 11% owned. He has a big-time ceiling, and he's in a great spot versus the Wizards, who just give it up fantasy point-wise to centers. They're allowing, on average, 38 fantasy points per game, 28th in the league. I think it's a great spot for Duren as long as he can stay out of some foul trouble. He could play at big-time minutes, and the ceiling is, up there with Zubac, and it's a nice little pivot away from him. Don't mind the Duren play at all. And then Carlo, we talked about, so getting on over to center on DK. Carlo, Duren, Zubac, covered all of them. I hope you guys have a great day. Good luck. Let's make some money, and we'll see you back tomorrow. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Helps us a ton. Peace.